Hello, and I'm back for the second live stream of the Books and Beer podcast on Twitch. Last week went a little bit long, got a little off subject. We'll see how this week goes. I'm going to try to keep it on subject as much as I can. Today's beer is white chocolate by the brewery in Placentia, California. It is the 2020 edition. And it is a nice, pretty dark amber color. On the can, they do tell you, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. If I can get what kind of glass to use and what the best temperature is to serve it at. It is a wheat wine style ale that is aged in bourbon barrels with cacao nibs and vanilla beans. It is also 14.8% alcohol by volume, which means that this will be the only one that I am having today, unlike last week when I had two. On the can, they've got a little description of it. It says, a tasteful treatment of cacao nibs and hand-prepared vanilla beans award the golden waves of this wheat wine style ale subtle savoriness reminiscent of white chocolate. Characters of coconut, honey, caramel, and vanilla intertwine seamlessly in this bourbon barrel aged treat. So you can definitely smell the bourbon. And the bourbon's the first thing I'm getting off of it. It mellows out pretty quick, but it's got a little bit of burn to it. So, we'll see how it tastes as the podcast goes on. So last week I showed you a whole bunch of books. It's all the ones that I've been reading or had read up until last week. And at that point in time I was reading the Mage Winds trilogy. I did finish that up. And that's the Mage Winds trilogy by Mercedes Lackey. It's in the Valdemar universe, and I followed that up with the Storm trilogy of Storm Warning, Storm Rising, and Storm Breaking, which I just finished last night. And I also exercised enough that I finished listening to Naturally Tan by Tan France of Queer Eye, and was so happy to find out that the 5th season of Queer Eye is going to be streaming on Netflix starting on June 5th. So I will probably end up binging that either the day it comes out or the day after, because I have a habit of doing that with Queer Eye. What's kind of sad is that they were getting ready to film season 6 here in Austin when everything went into lockdown. So I don't know what's going to happen with season 6. I don't know if it's still going to happen here in Austin. Kind of really makes me wish I had sent in an application several times when I thought about it, but I figured since they were staying relatively East Coast, not East Coast, but on the east side of the nation, that they weren't going to get here to Texas. and I didn't check, and so that didn't happen. So right now I am trying to figure out what to read next, at least on the fiction side. Okay, I'm getting the vanilla. And I guess I'm kind of getting an undernote of the coconut and a little bit of the honey. I am not really getting white chocolate except for in the way that it feels on the tongue. So yeah, I'm trying to decide whether or not to continue reading comfort reads or to go on and read something from my to-be-read list, because my to-be-read list is ridiculously long. And I do have several books that are on it available to me now, either in print or ebook. So I'm really trying to decide. I may go ahead and read the L Knight trilogy for Valdemar and then go and read something from my TBR list, but I'm not really sure yet. And nonfiction, I am reading essay by essay or letter by letter Seneca on the shortness of life, or Life is Long If You Know How to Use It. It's part of the Penguin Books Great Ideas series. Should not try to read and talk at the same time. It's a really small book, really thin, but it is not easy reading. It is one of the books that's been recommended on a lot of the podcasts that I listen to. So I am reading it. Seneca does take some things to the extreme, but that was in part because he was trying to make point to the people that he was writing to. But there are some good ideas in how to look at things in life that, if not taken to the extreme, I think could be really, really helpful. I also have another book of letters or essays on Stoicism that I'll be reading after this one. I'm still using Twitch for Dummies, still trying to figure out some things with Twitch, and I haven't really had time to go back in and update some of them. But I'm working on that. I'm streaming mostly from my PlayStation 4 when it comes to games, so a lot of the stuff in Twitch for Dummies is not helpful to me right now because my computer doesn't have the capture card and my PlayStation 4 is out in the other room. So until I get that stuff taken care of, anytime I'm going off my PlayStation 4, you're not going to see all the nice fancy stuff. So I haven't been driving much. So I have not gotten any further in Becoming by Michelle Obama. I need to still finish that. And I don't know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to go through next in driving when I start driving again. as far as listening goes, because I have both nonfiction and fiction stuff through Audible in my library that I can listen to, and I just haven't really decided what yet. I have several books on audio that I have print copies of, but I like to listen to them as well. So we'll just see when I finally get through Becoming what I decide to listen to next. I do have to run some errands probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and I will probably be in the car a fair amount, so I will probably go ahead and listen to it then. When I'm exercising, I have the other audiobooks from the guys in Queer Eye from the Fab Five. All of them have an audiobook. Most of them are relatively short, but I have those, and those will be what I'll be listening to while I'm exercising until I get through them all. So what I still need to get my hands on, and I haven't gotten it yet, is Discord for Dummies. T. Morris is the author. He's also the one that wrote Twitch for Dummies and Podcasting for Dummies. Podcasting for Dummies is going into its 4th edition, and Discord for Dummies just came out. I had mentioned that I needed to figure out how to get people in 2 different locations on the same stream, and T told me that that just might be covered in Discord for Dummies. So I'm probably going to have to get my hands on that as well. I don't know whether I'll get an e-version or a print version of that. My Twitch for Dummies is an e-version, but Podcasting for Dummies, I have the paper version of the 1st and 2nd edition, and e-version of the 3rd edition. So give me just a moment here. Okay. All right. So that's what I'm doing, what I'm reading, listening to right now. Okay. So I'm starting to get a little bit of the white chocolate. Still not getting the caramel. So, books. What more can I say about books? I write books as well as read them, and I've had a really hard time trying to work on my books during this time. You would think with all the time I have needing to stay in the house and not currently working that I would get a lot of writing done, but yeah, my creative brain does not want to actually do that. So I have not been writing. I need to do that. And I'm thinking I might just go back and reread the drafts that I currently have and see if getting back in touch with those characters helps. That would be a lot of fun if and probably help if I could do that. A lot of creative people are having the same kind of problem right now. And you hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, now I have time to write a book. It's not a matter of having the time. If you really want to do it, you make the time. It's a matter of not having the brain cycles, because for most of us who write, we have a lot of our brain cycle's tied up in the plotting, and you just can't even, I mean, I wouldn't have thought to write a story that would be like what is going on now. And when you're stressed, depressed, worried, angry, any of those things, those creative cycles in your brain are being used dealing with that and dealing with reality. And so they're not as available for you to access and use otherwise. So yeah, writing is not something that's going well right now. And I really want to change that. I need to get a final revision done on one of my books and hopefully have my editor take a last look at it before it gets out, and then I need to finish the next book in the series. And right now my editor is not working outside of doing some editing, and she could really use the money right now, and I happen to have the money available to pay her to have her edit some of my stuff. So I really want to get back on track with that. In the meantime, even my comfort reads, some of them are not easy reads. And so I keep looking at them going, I want to visit those characters. I want to play. I want to read them, but that's a hard read. And that may be why I've read so much of Mercedes Lackey Valdemar books in the past couple of weeks, is because those are really easy reads for me. They're not difficult things, difficult stories to get through. And although they can make you think, you don't have to think to enjoy them. And that makes a big deal to me. It is a big deal to me. That's one of the reasons that I haven't really been reading stuff on my to-be-read list, is because a lot of that stuff does require some serious thought. So if you're just tuning in, drop a hello in the feed, and I will do a shout out, and that way I know who I'm talking to. So this is a pint can rather than 12-ounce can, and it did not quite fit in my glass. Now it's empty. So again, this is the White Chocolate 2020 edition from the brewery in Placentia, California. It is, they call it a wheat wine. It's kind of a barley wine style. High alcohol by volume, aged in bourbon barrels, and you can really tell it's aged in the bourbon barrels. This is definitely, I mean, I'd have it again, but I wouldn't probably have it unless I was making myself a special dinner or something like that. So if anybody has any recommendations on books to read, I'm not really looking at reading gaming books. looking at stuff that's not going to make me think very hard, so hopefully I can get some of my creative cycles back to my writing. I will definitely take recommendations. I will read just about anything. Very few limitations on what genres I read. But I really do prefer some books that have some diversity in them. Books that are not centered around hetero, cis, white protagonists. But I'm not adverse to reading those either. It's just that that's what most of has been available in the past is, and I like reading own voices, stories that are written by and about a diverse set of people and a diverse set of beliefs. So, let's see, what else do we have? I probably need to redo my bookshelves. What you see behind me are all my technical and reference type books. Out in my living room I have a half-height bookshelf that is just role-playing games. And then I have 3 full-size bookshelves, 2 half-size bookshelves, and a box shelf that all have just my pleasure reading books in them. And most of those I've read multiple times. So, and I go back to them on a regular basis. It's a lot cheaper than going to the movies. And although now I can afford to rent or buy movies to stream, and I can afford my streaming channels and all of that, I still do like to read a lot. So I try to do that as much as I can. A lot of my favorite authors and a lot of the authors I know from podcasts and things like that are doing virtual classes or virtual discussions, things like that. If I wanted to spend all my time sitting in front of a monitor or sitting in front of my phone watching stuff, I could do that. But I'm at the point now where I have enough books on how to write, and I've read enough books on how to write that I need to actually be doing the writing rather than reading more books about how to write. I had several people on my Twitter feed and on my Facebook feed posting pictures of these stacks of books that they just got on the craft of writing. And I realized I had half the books that they have on there, if not more. But there comes a point when you have to stop reading the craft books and actually practice the craft, because that's the only way you get any better. And I can definitely tell the difference between the stuff that I wrote a couple of years ago and the stuff that I wrote at the end of last year. I have to do a lot less revising even so, I'm not where I want to be, and I have reread some stuff, drafts of stuff that I had started 10 years ago, that I reread it and I'm like, I wrote that? Because it to me is so much better than the stuff that I'm writing right now. So I need to be writing so I can improve that. I had started doing a short story challenge for myself. I was supposed to be writing a short story every week. I got the first 3 done, and that was about the time that we started getting the hints about the coronavirus, and then things started getting stressed at work because nobody knew whether they were going to have us work from home or send us home, or whether we were still going to have to be going into the office or what. And so I basically stopped writing those short stories. Again, something else I need to get back into. I'm not particularly good at short stories. I want to be good at short stories. The only way to do that is to write them. I tend to have enough of a background for most of my characters and most of my worlds that I will start a short story and it will turn into something that is novella or novel length. I have a few that I have written that I've managed to keep to short stories, but even those, I can look at them and there is a bigger story behind them that I want to tell. And unfortunately, at this point in time, I do have probably over 100 projects, not counting the short stories, in my project list. And every once in a while, my brain gives me one that it won't let go of, and I end up with adding another one to the list. If we weren't in a perpetual crisis mode right now, if it was just a matter of I had the time because I chose to take the time off of work, I might have a chance of getting some of them done. But at this point, I'm not getting any writing done, and I need to get that done. So again, if you're listening, you have any comments, want to talk about anything, just want a little bit of a shout out, go ahead and just say hi in the chat room so that I know you're there, and I will be more than happy to say hello and take suggestions on anything else I should talk about, because I haven't added anything new to my reading list this week, other than having finished the stuff that I've already finished. On the beer side, besides the one that I'm drinking, I have all the ingredients for a 3-gallon batch of vanilla porter, and I just haven't gotten off my butt and actually brewed it. I need to do that. It has been about 4 years since I've brewed a batch of my vanilla porter, and I kind of owe somebody a bottle of it, although I'm not sure how I'm going to get it to him, because I'm in Texas and he's in Virginia. I might just end up baking a batch of the vanilla porter cookies and sending those out to him, but we'll see. One of the things that I really want to do once we get back to where we can travel safely is to make a trip out to the East Coast. I was supposed to be going to New Zealand this summer, for Worldcon, but Worldcon went virtual. And it would be at the end of July. I would have to be buying my plane tickets right about now. And right now, whether or not they're going to allow traffic into New Zealand is questionable. They're talking about allowing traffic between Australia and New Zealand, but not between the continents. So we will see what happens with that, but it looks like my New Zealand trip this year is off, which I had 3 weeks scheduled off for that trip. So even if I were just to take from a Saturday to the next Sunday to go to the East Coast, I could spend some time in DC, visit my friend who works for the State Department, maybe get a chance to see T. Morris and Pip Ballantyne who are in Virginia, see some friends that are in Ohio, and just kind of hang out for a little while with people that I want to spend time with. I don't have much of a social life anyway, so in that respect, other than not being able to go out to the Alamo Draft House to see a movie and have a beer, or going to one of the local breweries, that hasn't changed. But it has made me want to be able to see and talk to the people that are far away, and I haven't been able to do that in quite a while. I was saving up all my leave from work for New Zealand this year, and for a family trip at the end of the year. And the family trip right now is still happening. That's not until just after Thanksgiving. So at least I know I will definitely have the time for that. I was going to have to give up some other time, but being that I'm not at work right now, I'm not using days off that I had requested off. So right now there's 2 days that I had scheduled off that I wasn't working, wasn't allowed to work. So those are back in my availability. And then I had Memorial Day weekend. I had the Thursday, Friday, and Tuesday off for that weekend, and I'm not back at work. Although that could change. They could call me up tomorrow and say, come by the building, pick up your laptop, you're going to be working from home. And if I'm doing that, then I'm probably not going to take those days off anyway, because I'm going to be working from home. But I was going to have to give those back up to take the family trip. But since New Zealand's not happening, and since I'm getting days back anyway, it's not going to matter. Because I'll have more days than I thought. I may try to reschedule New Zealand for next year, even though it won't be for the con, because I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. That may work out a little bit better, actually, because I won't have to schedule things around Worldcon. On the other hand, depending on where Worldcon is next year, I may go to Worldcon. We'll just have to see what happens. But that's kind of where I am right now. There was a Zoom class on basically planning your writing career that I had tentatively considered going to, that was earlier today, and when it came up I just kind of decided I didn't want to do it. And it's been interesting listening to all the podcasts from the other writers that I listen to and how the lockdown is affecting them. Several of them are in the UK, and they've had an actual lockdown, much stricter than what we've got here. Of course, I'm in Texas, and I have one of the governors who's decided that opening up the state is a good idea. Luckily, my mayor does not consider it to be a good idea to do it the way the governor's trying to do it. But our numbers have gone up in terms of confirmed cases and deaths due to COVID over the last 2 weeks since they've started reopening things. I will be going out, when I go out on Wednesday, I will be going out wearing a mask. I won't wear it in my car, but I will put it on before I get out of my car, before I go in anywhere. Because, one, I don't want to get sick. Two, if I happen to be an asymptomatic carrier, I don't want to infect somebody else. I have lots of friends who are immunocompromised, and you wouldn't necessarily know it to see them. So I'm not going to assume that anybody that I am interacting with is not at risk. Also, if I'm going out to run errands, to do things like go to the grocery store, get gas, pick stuff up, the people I'm interacting with, the people working at those stores, they're having to deal with lots and lots and lots of people who really don't care about their health. And I am thankful they're there, whether it's because they don't have a choice, because they can't afford to lose their job or not get a paycheck, or because they feel it's their duty. But they're taking chances that I don't have to. And so I'm not going to put them in any more risk than I can avoid. And so I'll wear a mask. I made my mask myself, and it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. It steams up my glasses if I don't have them sitting just right on top of it. But it is what it is, you know. There's a reason that quite a few of the countries who've cut the numbers down significantly have done so. And I don't consider wearing a mask being a infringement of my freedom or liberty. I would like things to remain as they are in terms of the amount of personal freedom that I have. And I have the freedom, and I have the care not to expose other people to potential threats, as well as to minimize my risk. So I'll wear a mask. I don't wear a mask when I'm exercising, when I go out for my walks, but over the course of an hour I will see maybe 5 people, and our hike and bike trails are more than 6 feet, or about 6 feet wide, and so far every time I've come across somebody else, we have both gone to opposite sides of the hike and bike trail and smiled maybe said hello, and that was it. So there's no interaction going on there that I really need to worry about. I did realize after I did my 3-mile walk that I need new shoes because my feet hurt. 2 days later, my feet still hurt. And I looked at the bottom of my shoes, and there's no tread on the ball of the shoe anymore. So that is something that I am going to have to do, but I need to try on shoes to get ones that fit me properly, especially for exercising, and that is not something that I want to go spend time doing in public right now, because I have no control over how many people have handled those shoes before I try them on. And so even if I wore a face mask, I would still be exposed to potential risk factors and potentially be exposing other people to risk factors. I said I wasn't going to get off subject, and I did, majorly. So what I am going to say at this point is, if you can, buy books from debut authors. They're having a really hard time right now, especially since so many bookstores are closed or not doing in-store business. If you want a print copy, don't order it from Amazon. Order it from Bookshop or go to IndieBound. And IndieBound will give you a link to the independent bookstores in your area. Many of them are still doing mail order. Austin has the wonderful Book People independent bookstore, and while you can't go into Book People right now, they are still doing online orders and shipping. So if I want a print copy, I'm probably going to go through them, even though it may take a little bit longer to get it than going through Amazon. You can also, although you can't necessarily go into public libraries right now, most libraries now have ebooks that you can check out. You download the app that your library is using, and then you can check out ebooks through them. If you know of independent authors and the library does not carry their books, request them. Many independent authors are now working through third parties that will get their books into the library system. So the books are there if you just ask for them, and the library either purchases a copy or purchases a license to where they pay a small amount each time the book is checked out. And so the author still makes an income from those books, even though they're from the library. Those can help the authors that you really enjoy, especially the independent authors or the small press authors. Ebook sales are up. Audiobook sales are about the same as they have been because people aren't driving, so there's no commute time where they're listening to books. But at the same time, while people aren't listening to books on their commutes as much, they are listening to them when they're doing things like exercising or cleaning the house or working on other projects. So audiobooks have stayed about level. The nice thing about audiobooks is that you can listen to them on your phone. I don't do a whole lot of reading on my phone. I have an actual tablet if I'm going to read. because I read fast enough that reading on my phone is kind of annoying because I'm always turning the page. But I do listen to audiobooks primarily off my phone. What else? If you are trying to be creative and it's not working, just know that you're not the only one, and that even though people are saying, hey, if you come out of this without having learned something new or written a book or whatever, those people are wrong. If you were choosing to take this time off, if you were choosing to isolate yourself to do something creative, that is different from being forced to isolate yourself to ensure that you don't get sick, or ensure that people around you don't get sick. So there's a big difference there, and the creative brain deals with those two things completely differently. If in the current situation your creative brain is probably using all of its cycles up just to figure out how to deal day to day, and that's okay. It doesn't feel okay sometimes. I absolutely adore writing stories. I love my characters. I love seeing what they're going to do, because sometimes they surprise me and they don't do what I had thought they were going to do. And I have to rearrange parts of the story because of it. I want to write, and sometimes it's not easy to deal with the fact that my brain just isn't up to doing that right now. My brain isn't up to doing some of the other creative stuff that I like to do. And that's okay. I have to keep reminding myself of that. I occasionally have to have somebody else remind me of that. It is what it is. What I may do is I may go back and write some fanfic. When I've been away from writing for a while and I have trouble getting started again, sometimes writing fanfic helps out, because it uses up less creative cycles in that the world and the characters are already there for you. You don't have to come up with them. And so I may go back and write some fanfic. Of course, that would mean that I would have to decide what fanfic to write. And there's an awful lot of them that I could write. So maybe I'll just go back and reread the story that I'm doing the revision on, and hope that that'll get me back on track. But it's a difficult time, even though it doesn't seem like it should be, in terms of creativity, in terms of doing stuff that we would normally love to be able to do. The fact that we have to stay home rather than we can stay home makes a big difference. And that's just what it is. I am going to say make sure that you vote in November, even if you don't think your vote is going to matter. Please choose to vote for a mainstream candidate. If the candidate you wanted to vote for is no longer a candidate, please make sure that your vote ends up counting, and don't vote for someone who doesn't have a chance. Because right now that is a way to make sure that things don't change. I know my ideal candidate is out of the running at this point. I will end up voting for the Democratic candidate. And it's not because I vote Democrat. It's because I don't like the way things are going right now, and I don't want to see them continue going that way. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because getting political is a sure way to piss off a lot of people. So, get me your recommendations for things I can read. If you happen to be someone who follows me at other places and you know what I write, let me know what you think I should be working on. Let me know what kind of games you'd like to see me play on my other streams. Which reminds me, Friday I actually streamed twice. Fridays are Final Fantasy Friday. So right now what I'm doing is that during the day I am streaming the original Final Fantasy VII, the remastered version on the PlayStation 4, and then Friday nights I'm streaming Final Fantasy VII Remake. And once I finish each of those, then I will move. I've got Final Fantasy 8, 9, and 10. So Fridays are going to be Final Fantasy. Mondays and Wednesdays will also be gaming. Mondays will be variable. It's I was originally going to do the Uncharted series on Mondays, but I think Mondays is going to be whatever I feel like playing. And Wednesdays is going to be Assassin's Creed, starting with Assassin's Creed 2 this Wednesday. That's on my PC. Uncharted and Final Fantasy are on the PlayStation. Tuesdays and Thursdays I am going to try to stream some of the arts and crafts, arts and sciences stuff that I'm doing. I haven't quite gotten exactly how I'm going to get my camera to work as, or my phone to work as an additional camera yet on those, so we will see how that works. Tuesday, I will either be making a costume for a little troll doll, or I will be making a house for the troll doll. And either I will be using my webcam strictly for that, or I will be using my webcam for me and the camera on my phone to show you what I'm doing. It will depend on if I can get that to work correctly or not. But there's a long story behind the troll, and it has to do with the Renaissance Fair, the local Renaissance Fair, and one of the patrons and friends of the shop that I work in. And if you tune in on Tuesday, then I will explain all that. But this is supposed to be books and beer, and I have gotten way, way, way off topic multiple times. So I really would like to get people in and commenting, and maybe bring people in to be able to talk with people. Eventually, what I would like to do with Books and Beer is actually to be able to interview brewers and authors about books, about their favorite beverages, alcoholic or not, beer or not. I am hoping at some point that I will be able to actually get T. Morris in on a dual stream to talk books and writing and beer, because I think T is probably even a bigger beer snob than I am, and I have a beer sitting in my refrigerator waiting for the day I can do that with him. But for now, I think that's going to be about it. Since I don't have any questions or comments in the chat, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Have a good week. If my voice isn't too annoying, then tune in during the week when I'm streaming games and the other things that I'm doing. And feel free to leave comments, ask questions, contact me on Twitter or through Facebook. And on Facebook, I do have the Books and Beer Club page. You can reach me there. You can reach me on my author page at Jaylyn Baker. Just a second here. That one's got its own address, and I keep forgetting exactly what it is. Okay, so the author page is facebook.com/Shadows of Jaylyn Baker. You can contact me on my regular Facebook page. If you want to do that. I'm on Twitter at Shadows Edge. I do have several websites. One of them is JaylynBaker.com. That is my author website. It needs updating, and I haven't updated it in a while. At theshadowsedge.com That is my general, this is what I'm doing website. I also haven't updated that in a while. I need to do that. I do have I have short stories in 2 books that are online and available through Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, any of your online book retailers. The books are anthologies that benefit the conference for women in fantasy that I go to almost every year. It's called Sirens, and the ones that I have stories in are Queens and Courtesans, and shoot, give me a second here. I always get the title wrong on the other one. So give me just a second here. Really? Okay, let me try something else real quick. I always get the title on the second one wrong because we went through about 3 different versions of the title before we came up with it. Rebels and Revenants. That's the other one that I have a story in. Now, there are actually 4 anthologies, but I only have stories in 2 of them. And so it's Queens and Courtesans and Rebels and Revenants. I do have a novel that is currently only available on Amazon, but I'm about to pull it. It's the one that I'm revising, and then I will be reissuing it in a new edition, and that will be going wide. It will be available on all your online retailers. It'll be available through the libraries. It'll be available to have your indie bookstores order in print. But at the moment, the version that's online has a lot of typos and needs to be fixed. And so I'm in the midst of, that's one of the things that I'm revising, or trying to revise. It is called Shadows and Secrets, and I do publish under J. Lynn Baker. It's not Jennifer Baker, so you can find it there. So if you are tuned in, if you are watching, if you want to keep track of when I'm online, please make sure you click that little purple button, a little purple heart up in the corner of your screen, and follow me. That way you will be able to get notifications on when I'm going online and what I'm going online doing. I'm going to try to keep Books and Beer at about 7 p.m. Central Time. That may change depending on, as we get back to doing things, that may change between Saturdays and Sundays. It may change times. It's just going to depend on what's going on, but right now plan on Books and Beer being podcasts on and being streamed on Sundays at 7 p.m. Central Time. I do need to take some time and pull the audio and get these over to YouTube, and so they should be accessible on YouTube, and the audio should go out through booksandbeer.club, available on any of the podcast catchers that you happen to use. But I do need to get in and pull that stuff over and get it over to YouTube and pull the audio and get it edited for the podcast version. It's just one of those things that takes a little bit more time, and I need to sit down and do it. And at this point in time, I have not been willing to or able to sit down and actually spend the time doing the nitpicky, fiddly little things that I have to do that. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you for viewing this if you're viewing it later, because you couldn't get online when I streamed. And hopefully you will come back again at a later point in time and either watch my other streams or at least come back for this one, and hopefully we'll be able to get a good dialogue going and get some questions and answers in conversation. So until next week, and try to enjoy your week. Try to do one little thing that you really want to do, but don't beat yourself up if you don't have the creative cycles to do those things that you otherwise would really want to be doing. Okay? So cheers, and I will talk to you all next week.